Hello, welcome to another episode of Dissonant Waves. We're back with another Minisode this week, Minisode 21, and we're doing some Green Day stuff again. It's been about 6 months, and we're back to the Green
Yeah,
Day.
Green Day.
Doing some Green Day movies. This is an episode I feel like we talked about maybe before, but one I have been excited for sure. We're doing two of their most famously involved movies, movies that have like spun off their songs or their songs have been prominently featured in. You got Angus from the mid 90s and The Ordinary World from the mid 2010s, starring Billie Joe Armstrong.
Yes. I'm going to be upfront. I personally did not like either of these movies that much.
Okay, that's fair. I guess we might as well start with Angus, unless Tricks, since I did not introduce you yet. You want to just say how you're doing or something?
I've got a coffee mug full of wine.
Okay. And I have some sparkling water, which I probably should open now so it doesn't get interrupted our conversation later.
Get it out of the way. Crack that hiss.
I guess I did it earlier and I did not completely close it all the way. Okay. I did it myself there. So you did not particularly like Angus. I feel like we should talk about that one first because it came first.
Yeah. I liked it better than Ordinary World, I'll say that. But I think the only thing notable about this movie is the soundtrack. And if it didn't have the soundtrack, I don't think it would be remembered much at all.
I mean, it's not. But let's set up the movie briefly. Angus is about a high school kid. He's a freshman. He's pretty big. He's large.
Big and fat.
Yeah.
I relate.
I also relate. He's a football player, and there's always this jerk jock. Is his name Rick or Rich or something like that?
Something like that.
And the beginning of the movie is about how he's always was bullied by this kid growing up, so Angus just keeps punching him in the face.
Breaking his nose.
Yeah, it's like 3 times in the beginning there. And then it drops us into the plot of how he's in love with this girl. And, he's just dealing with growing up and having his family and, like, falling in love with this girl. And then all of a sudden he's elected prom king. Oops, and that's just another practical joke played by the bully. And it's just about how he deals with that and, like, how he learns to embrace himself and love himself and all that usual high school movie stuff.
Yeah, and there's some interesting subplots about a blow-up doll and science school.
And his grandfather and his mom. His grandfather's played by George C. Scott, a great old-time actor, and his mom is Kathy Bates, pretty much doing a pilot run of her later Academy Award-nominated performance in Richard Jewell, almost the same role.
I have not seen that movie, so I can't comment.
I liked Richard Jewell. I am Clint Eastwood's like a guilty pleasure of mine, and that's probably one of his better recent movies.
And that's why he was in that one album art of Dissonant Waves.
But yeah, so what didn't you exactly like? Like what stands out the most to you?
It's kind of like an incel-ish movie.
How so?
Like nerdy guy gets picked on, rises above his bullies, and gets the girl at the end.
I guess I don't know if Angus has an incelish attitude though.
Not really, but like I could see like incels like relating with that pretty well.
I mean, we related to parts of it. Are we incels?
Well, I mean, not really. And I guess the film does have a good message about accepting yourself and not changing who you are.
The whole what is the catchphrase they keep using? Screw it, who cares what they think or whatever.
Screw them.
Yeah, I like this movie. All right, I think honestly, I think in terms of high school movies and like all that kind of crap, I didn't ever really like a lot of high school movies, especially because I loathe movie high school because it's so cheap and like tropey. And this movie is not like innocent of that or anything like that. It has a lot of the tropes.
I have not watched an episode of Glee, and I refuse to.
My parents loved Glee, and so I have unfortunately seen a bit of it, and I do not like it.
Rip.
But I do think that Angus is an interesting movie because it's based on a novel or a short story by Chris Crutcher, and I grew up reading a lot of like 70s to 90s YA, usually meant for boys. I also wrote some Babysitters Club, so I tried to cross the line a bit there, I guess. But a lot of those books never really got adapted or anything, and so I got a really interesting blast from the past of like the movie really captures kind of the feel of those books and those stories. It's kind of normal and everyone's kind of, learning to break the norms and be themselves, but there's something about the feel of those books that's so simple, but it feels still to me genuine, that I've never really seen captured in a movie, because I think a lot of high school movies, especially now, are so clean cut, Disneyfied.
Yeah, the DComs.
Right. And Angus is like, it's not. Angus is a movie.
Yeah.
I was thinking of also like Malcolm in the Middle and like other kid movies from that era, like Snow Day or something like that. And it has shades of that.
Fuck, I forgot about Snow Day. Oh, jeez.
I feel like I saw that in theaters. I probably did.
I had that on DVD as a kid, and I think I might even still have it.
I bet that DVD is probably rare because I don't think I've seen it when I used to work at the DVD store.
Damn.
But it might not be. Who knows? But I get shades of that, and I don't know. Like reading some of those like novels meant for kids back then, it was different than the movies that were coming out then. So having that movie that was more grounded and like felt like a real movie was nice for me. And the director, what's his name? Patrick. I got the DVD here. Patrick Reed Johnson. He's not made a ton of movies, but he's most famous right now because his movie 5/25/77 has been in post production for literally like 15, 16, 17 years. And the star is a young John Francis Daly of Freaks and Geeks, and now it's 20 years later almost.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I like Kathy Bates. I think the kid who plays Angus is actually really good as an actor.
Yeah.
Like I think he sells that performance really, really well. And
definitely, especially the monologue for like the science experiment.
The science experiment, like I think the monologue at the prom or the winter ball thing that they do. He has a few good monologues, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like this movie is not super well known. Like the DVD that I have is from the Warner Archive collection, which means that it's a DVD-R that Warner Brothers pretty much makes to order. And so it is not good enough to have a regular DVD release. You have to order it online if you want it.
That's interesting. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, Warner does that. I think Universal does that, or they did that. I don't know how common it still is anymore. But yeah, there's quite a few movies like that.
Huh.
But the song, the Green Day song "J.A.R." is like the connection there, because J.A.R. was like one of their more famous hits of the '90s. I feel like, and it was never on an album. Was J.A.R. on like Shenanigans or something?
I think it only might have been on the on like the super hits, international super hits.
Okay, that probably makes sense. So we'll probably get there eventually. But this is the movie. I'm sure they probably went to Green Day and they're like, "Hey, you got anything that we can use? Like anything?" And they're like, "Yeah, here's like a cut from Dookie, I guess."
Yeah, it's only on international super hits.
And the interesting thing too is that like a really minor subplot, the kids all want to get tickets backstage to a Green Day concert.
Yeah.
And this is like a movie set in Minnesota. So I guess that's kind of fun to aspire to when there's nothing else going on and it's cold.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in Minnesota, so I'd be doing the same.
But I mean, like, I don't know, if you watch like movies from that era, you'll probably recognize a couple other actors. Like, what is his name? Chris Owen, who was in the American Pie movies, is the Shermanator. Or like
I have not watched any of those. My late 90s, early 2000s movie knowledge is lacking.
Fair enough. You got like James Vanderbeek, who's like Dawson's Creek guy, is the bully. I don't know. Like I appreciate that this movie it felt kind of, I hesitate to say gritty because it's not gritty, but like real in a sense. Like,
yeah.
It's real. It's kind of rough around the edges. Like they have a fuck in there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of always
shits.
Yeah, that's always kind of nice to have. It's like, oh yeah, the kids speak like kids would speak.
Yeah.
Filmmaking wise, like I definitely have criticisms with it as someone who knows a little bit about filmmaking. Like there's a whole subplot with the grandfather like getting married, and it's kind of like weirdly handled, where it's like
they just shoehorn it all in.
Right, where it's like, oh, in the beginning they set up, okay, he's marrying somebody who's like 40 years younger than him or whatever. Cool.
And you don't meet her until like the wedding.
Yeah, you don't meet her until like an hour into the movie almost. And it's barely brought up after the first scene when they talk about it. It's just like, oh yeah, getting married.
Yeah.
So that's like a thing. I feel like that's a missed opportunity of like, okay, build it up a little bit more. I want to feel for this bride when the tragedy inevitably strikes.
Yeah.
Um,
Because should we spoil this old movie?
sure, whatever.
Grandfather dies.
Yeah, and it's like the most obvious scene too, where it's like, are they gonna do that? Are they really gonna kill him off? And it's
Yeah.
like, of course they do. They have the whole thing where they have to wake him up by playing the Army Reverie song on the record player.
Taps.
Taps, sure. And then he like sits down in his chair during one of Angus's speeches, and he just doesn't get up again. Angus killed him by just being too talkative.
Yep.
And it's like, I really feel like the movie could have done without that, just because it doesn't really do much. Like, it does do a little bit.
I do like the imagery of the chess set. I'll say that.
Yeah, the chess set stuff. You ever seen that Pixar short Jerry's Game?
Probably, but
It's like one of the early
I'll have to
ones.
refresh my.
It's like an old man plays chess by himself. He kind of goes back and forth between the sides, and it's just like, it's in the park. It's like the same setup as this movie. But like, I almost feel like somebody in Pixar saw this movie and like that imagery so much they made it its own thing.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm sure it's better standing alone than wedged into this movie.
Sure.
Like, there's a reason that you don't really see this movie talked about. Not that it's bad, just that it's not great.
I think I like it more than you. I think it probably deserves a little bit more recognition because there is good acting, and if I'm ever going to watch like a teenage movie for some reason, whether it's like for research for my writing or something like that, I would probably watch this over a lot of other teen movies.
Yeah, that's fair.
I also really like Kathy Bates. She's a fun actress.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
But it is certainly better than Ordinary World.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
Let's dive into that one a little bit. Do you want to?
I'm just gonna get ahead of it and say that Billie Joe can't act at all.
Oh, okay. I disagree.
He says like everything in like the same cadence of voice.
Yeah, but he's supposed to do that. Like, that's his entire role. He's a lame dad.
Yeah, but like if you're saying the same emotion to a stripper to use a coaster that your brother's cutting you out of your business.
I felt like that was very intentional, but maybe it wasn't. But it worked for me. Where it's like okay, do you want to describe the plot from what you can remember?
Yeah, I just watched it before I hopped on the call.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Fairly, it is all right. It's basically he wakes up. It's his birthday. His wife forgets it's his birthday. He has to go run some errands, work his job, and then he's like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna throw a party." And he throws a party. Doesn't go to the party really, just naps. Gets in a bunch of trouble with his family, and that freaks out even more. Smashes his daughter's guitar, and just wants to relive the glory days. But then he finds out he's kicked out of his band, and then it turns out that it wasn't his birthday.
Yeah, his birthday was tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, and of course, like it kind of, it's like an alternate reality almost of like, what if Green Day didn't last beyond like Dookie or something?
It's like if Spike was turned into a movie.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Billie Joe's character was in a band, and then he left the band. I guess it made it sound like the band broke up at first, but then it's like, no, he just left the band because he was disappointed how it went with the album or whatever.
And he had a kid too.
That too. They just had a kid, and then they just started raising the kid. Which, thinking about it, it doesn't necessarily make sense because the movie is like set 20 years later, and the kid is like maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah, I just put that together.
So they're
because everything takes place in it doesn't say when he had the kid.
right, but like it says 20 years later, and it says, okay, they made an album, and I'm assuming the beginning of the movie is like showing them at their peak, right?
Yeah.
And so like if that's their peak, then they're probably gonna put out an album in like a couple years or so. Like that's my assumption. I could be wrong, but I would not think that the band lasted for like another 12 years.
Yeah, especially especially with like the way that he described that they got shafted over the one album.
Yeah, like that would happen sooner than that. And then okay, the kid, she's like 8, and he's like adjusting to being a dad, sure. But I feel like there's like some missing like there's a lot of like weird stuff with like time and how his memory is and everything.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that really bothered me was the baby.
Yeah.
Where the baby is there in the beginning is like a joke about, oh, you didn't change his diaper, whatever. And then the baby just disappears for most of the movie.
Yeah, I forgot about the baby, and he's on the cover.
Yeah, he's on the cover of the DVD, which I have here. And the mom is a public defender, Selma Blair, great actor. And like, you see the mom take the baby, but as a public defender, she's not going to be caring for that baby as she's working.
She might be dropping him off at daycare.
Yeah.
She said that she's 20 minutes late from work. Maybe her work offers daycare, because I know that some works do.
Sure, but like, maybe you want to establish that.
Yeah, like a throwaway line, like, I'm taking him into daycare.
Yeah, like, oh, you have to work your job today, so I'm gonna take him to daycare. Don't worry about it. Something like that. Because like, literally, I'm like, okay, where is the baby? What happened to the baby? Is he left at home? Because like, Billie Joe's character is so forgetful about everything that I would not be surprised if the baby was left at home.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, I have problems with this movie. I honestly think Billie Joe's acting is like the one thing I like about it. Because
I disagree, but go on.
Like, I have trouble figuring out if it's like poorly written, poorly directed, or both. Because like, the whole movie is about how Billie Joe's character is a slacker. He's Spike in movie form, and he's just coasting through life, aimless, and everyone's concerned about him. He's still living out that punk rock lifestyle at 40, right?
Yeah.
And okay, that makes sense. But then every time someone confronts him about it, it's in the worst way possible that ends up justifying why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's the scene where he goes to the hardware store to work, and he doesn't give a shit. Not at all. But then it's like, okay, his brother who owns the store, because their dad died and left it in the will, I guess, for some reason.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you don't care. It's your birthday today. Here's some money. He literally gives him the store's money to go and just blow it off and have fun. Which, again, what? Why?
Yeah.
And so Billie Joe does, and then eventually he comes back, because literally the whole movie is like complication, and like the most obscenely clear and like, I can just see the screenplay and how it was written kind of way of like,
oh yeah,
he goes to do a thing.
Like
there's a complication.
Him leaving the guitar at work. I'm like, where's the guitar? His wife's gonna get mad at him.
Right.
Oh, yeah, his in-laws.
Right. It's like, because I'm like, wait, okay, the in-laws. He's forgetting the in-laws. Oh, the in-laws finally come to play. Okay. But then he has to do something else for the in-laws. And then it's like, okay, blah, blah, blah. Then he's get back to the party. He's like, and then he has to go back to get the guitar. And all that, the guitar, he's being up with the dads again. The things that I care about are like getting pushed aside for these scenes I do not care about.
Yeah.
But as he goes back to get the guitar, he happens to find out that his brother is cutting him out of the store, and they're gonna fire him basically because there was a stipulation in the dad's will that if he was not carrying his weight, they would just do that.
Yeah.
Which again, why? Like, I get he's a slacker, but like, that seems very specific. Like,
it does.
And so, like, oh, it's like his birthday, and the brother's just cutting him out on his birthday, and like the entire way that's happening is so sneaky and like discreet. Like the brother talks to Billie Joe's wife about it and everything, like behind his back. And so when the scene happens and the brothers are talking it out about what's happening and why, I am completely on Billie Joe's side of like, why are you doing it this way?
Yeah.
That's like most of it. Like, okay, there's also the subplot about Billie Joe's daughter. She goes to school, and the dads that are there want him to be friends because they're dads, and they come in at like the worst time, and every time they're on screen, pretty much. And it's like,
of course.
And it's like, okay, I understand that they want him to be friends, but it's like they come in at the worst time, and they're not very interesting. They're kind of annoying, and so of course he doesn't want to be friends with them. He's completely justified trying to like get out of it.
Oh yeah.
And it's like the movie like defeats its own point of trying to be like, Billie Joe, you have to learn to grow up or whatever because you're 40 and you're still doing this stuff and it's affecting your life. When every time it's come up, like it's like a natural response to what is happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the movie's really trying to do at a certain point.
Yeah, it gets in its own way, and there's like too many just like awkward scenes.
Yeah.
Too.
Like, okay, he's so tired from all his shenanigans that he's having to go through that when he gets back to this party he just tried to throw at the hotel. It's like this weird balance of like whenever somebody talks to him, He wants something. He gets it in like the most blasé way possible. Like at the hotel, when he rents a hotel room just because he wants to do that for his birthday, he ends up getting like the presidential suite because they end up talking about it briefly, and he's like, "Oh, I want that. I just want that. Whatever."
Yeah, from buying it from Kevin from The Office.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, I have to go do this other stuff. So my friends who are in the band are just gonna throw the party while I'm gone. And of course, they're punk rock people, so of course they're gonna be messy and invite a ton of people and just not give a shit about Billie Joe and his feelings and his dad's problems. But by the time he gets back there, it's like, late, so he just falls asleep in bed and takes a nap for the afternoon. And then he wakes up, and then like his friend, who is now like a big publicist for Joan Jett appears in the movie. She just comes in and just starts like giving him like a massage and stuff. And it gets all weird because it's like,
yeah, like there was gonna be like a cheating subplot,
right?
But like
then they said no.
Yeah, at the last minute he realizes what's where it's going. So he's like, "Oh, let me play a song."
Yeah, but as this is all going on, I'm like, okay, the whole thing is that he has to get the guitar back to his daughter for the talent show that she has. And I'm like, okay, but what about your daughter? What about your daughter? What about your daughter? It's getting late. The talent show. And he doesn't remember. He doesn't talk about it. It's just not a thing until it becomes a thing. Toward the end of the movie, then, as he's finally busted for throwing a fucking rancid ass party in the presidential suite of a really expensive hotel, Kevin from The Office, they get him handcuffed, and of course that's the moment where he's like, "Oh, I need to access my phone to call my wife." And of course that's the moment when the wife and the kid are finally getting ready for the talent show. Only then, when she calls him to see where he is after 5 hours of not being present at all or getting a signal at all or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's weirdly specifically perfect and too circumstantial to be credible.
Absolutely. It's
now
there is no easy way to explain this movie if you haven't seen it, and we're not recommending you watch it.
No. And like they even make Fred Armisen really annoying, which is
Fred Armisen as a punk doesn't work.
No, he's just an asshole. Like he just does not give a shit.
Yeah.
Like he's definitely done that in like Saturday Night Live before, and like playing like people that are not necessarily great, but like to have him as kind of the villain of the movie almost. And like ultimately the villain is Billie Joe, his character, not like getting in the way of himself, sure. But Fred Armisen is like the antagonistic force trying to get him to do all of his worst impulses and all that stuff, and he has to resist and all that. It's like it just is so annoying to have to see that, and it's like, okay, you're gonna just not give a shit about anything your friend is saying about his life or his kid, and I don't know. I think Angus worked just fine as a movie. This does not work very well.
No, Angus is definitely better.
The only reason I like Billie Joe's performance is that it feels like the kind of role that movie called for, and anytime Billie Joe is not playing himself, it seems that it works a lot better. Like The Network, for example. Yeah. And so seeing him play like the most lamest dad possible, I can see where that performance comes through, because it's like, okay, really he wants to be a punk rocker. He really wants to be Billie Joe Armstrong, but he's not. That to me is the only interesting thing about Ordinary World.
It is like a minor nitpick I wanted to mention.
Sure.
That just nobody except guitar nerds would notice. But the guitar that he's playing throughout like the flashbacks and that he sells at the end is a 1970s Gibson L6S.
Yeah.
In a rare finish called Silver Burst. It's especially rare for L6Ss. They didn't, because the L6S was a cheaper guitar, and the Silver Burst was a more expensive finish.
Right.
And so you wouldn't normally see them that much. And so as a result, they're extremely collectible nowadays and worth a lot of money.
Right. It's kind of a plot point.
And and then he just trades it for like an off the rack Les Paul.
Wasn't it the one that was like worth a ton of money that he didn't want to really trade even or sell?
Yeah.
But it's not really worth anything. It's just a Les Paul.
Yeah, the one that he like is looking at on the wall. It's just a slightly modified Les Paul, either a P90 Les Paul or a mini humbucker. There's a mini humbucker in the neck and a P90 in the bridge. It's nothing really special. I don't even think it's like a custom. It's just like a Les Paul standard.
So what they really needed then was to be like, hey, this is signed by somebody. This is somebody's guitar.
In universe, it's kind of that. It establishes that he's a nobody.
Sure, but like if he has this L6 guitar and like the guitar owner guy's like, well, if you trade me that guitar, I'll let you have this really expensive guitar I don't want to sell. So I feel like for guitar nerds, then you'd want to be like, okay, this was Joan Jett's guitar.
Yeah.
That would make Joan Jett being in the movie make even more sense because it's like, oh, her guitar, okay.
Yeah, but they didn't end up doing anything like that, and it just one of those like minor details. It's like how in Back to the Future, what year does it take place? 54,
55, I think.
55. The guitar that Marty McFly is playing at the end is a 1963 Gibson 355, not 335,
Mm-hmm.
and it's anachronistic. It's one of those things where unless you're like a super nerd, you wouldn't notice it, but it drives you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those details for me.
Other things I will say that are positive about Ordinary World, I do like the old footage, or the quote unquote old footage of like the 90s version of the band. Because Billie Joe still looks like Billie Joe from 20 years ago somehow.
Yeah, he doesn't age.
And then they aged him and like made him look completely different for the modern version.
That's what 5 o'clock Shadow not wearing a weird blonde wig will do.
And then glasses.
Yes.
But like it works. I think it works pretty well for what that is.
Oh yeah, if it was anybody else, it wouldn't really work as well.
Like I hate his look. I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah. Although I know some people who look exactly like him.
Yeah, I do too. But like it doesn't look like Billie Joe Armstrong.
Not really.
Like he looks like a regular dude, which is like the interesting part.
Yeah.
What did you think of the music?
It was basically kind of Green Day songs.
I mean, yeah, Ordinary World's on Revolution Radio.
Yeah. I haven't listened to Revolution Radio, so
I've listened to a little bit. I know a lot of the other songs are from the Long Shot, that other solo project he did or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it's solo exactly, but something like it.
Yeah.
So whenever we get to that, we'll be kind of revisiting some of these songs. But
yeah,
they were fine. They're like late Green Day.
Yeah. I mean, nothing to complain about.
I do think the recent song that came out, Pollyanna, is more interesting.
Oh, definitely.
How would you describe Pollyanna?
Like it starts off as kind of like a more synthy kind of Green Day, like almost onto the network, but not really. And then kind of just transforms into an early 2010s indie song.
Yes, but I feel like for Green Day, I was like getting like shades of the mid 90s version of like post Dookie. But like it almost reminded me of like American Idiot, but not. So maybe somewhere like before that. Where it's like this sounds like a Green Day song. It definitely does. But it's not as hard the direction of American Idiot. That's also not Dookie.
Yeah.
But it doesn't remind me of like the modern stuff that we've listened to yet. It feels like a throwback.
It's definitely better than Here Comes the Shock.
I think I listened to that. If I listened to it, it was not very memorable.
We listen. It was the one with the like punk rock workout video.
I don't remember. I feel like I listened to it though.
Yeah, it was like it sounded like an Uno Dos Tres B-side.
Yeah, my coworker who also loves Green Day, I guess more than me really. He's always been interested in that we do this, and he's tried to keep me up to date on stuff. So he says a lot of the similar things, and it's like, okay, if he's saying this and you're saying this, yeah, I'm interested to see what becomes of the new stuff they're releasing. If there's another album in the works, because if there is, you have Here Comes the Shock, which people don't seem to really like as much. You have Pollyanna, but it doesn't really seem indicative of where they're going.
Yeah, on Genius, they have an album listed. It's not named. It's just like Green Day album 14, whatever.
Yeah.
So that could mean something. It could mean nothing. Let me see here. Pulling it up. And also the lyrics are like surprisingly like uplifting.
Yeah, it was very motivational and like you're a teen and things are bad, but you can do it kind of thing.
Yeah. And like it's just like stock Genius art for is Green Day number 14.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, the stuff that they put out is like Pollyanna's fine, but it's not like the network. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like they've proven that they can still make good music with the network.
Oh, absolutely. I was listening to it earlier this week.
Digital Black is a great song. I still listen to Digital Black all the time.
Definitely. The whole album is great. Like I was listening to what's the tune?
The Respirator.
Yeah, I was listening to Respirator while I was like dunking on a Covidiot. That
Mhm.
was kind of fun. But then Time Capsule is the other one I was listening to because it's got that the line Max Headroom in the bedroom,
Yeah,
and that got me thinking. Do you think more people know Max Headroom from the Max Headroom incident than what he was actually originally created for?
probably. I still am fascinated by that incident, and I think if I were to have seen that live, it would have caused me nightmares.
Oh, absolutely.
Max Headroom is creepy,
Yeah, I mean a grown man getting spanked.
but also just the head. I hate the head.
Oh yeah, catch the wave.
Yeah, if Pollyanna and like Here Comes the Shaka are like kind of showing where they might be going with the new album, like I just don't understand why.
I hope they continue in the direction of Pollyanna if they're going to continue on with that with the direction at all.
It doesn't seem like a solid direction. Like the two songs they released are very different.
Yes.
So unless they're doing some kind of like weird tonal shift throughout the album, I I don't know. Or unless it's just like a collection of songs and it's just like who cares. But
Yeah.
that doesn't I don't know if that's exactly them either.
Yeah, it's definitely weird.
It's frustrating that they just don't like let's put the energy that we made for Money Money 2020 Part 2 and like shift it to Green Day.
Yeah.
Like they have like a self-imposed thing. If we must be punk, we must do the punk thing.
When like Billie Joe's covers album was better
Father of All.
than either of the singles.
Yeah, that covers album's still pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting checking up 6 months after all that stuff happened. All the albums came out and all the EPs and the songs, and
Yeah.
it looks like we're in a little bit of a Green Day renaissance or something like that. We'll see. We'll definitely be back to do another Green Day episode eventually
Absolutely.
because we're just becoming slowly Green Day experts.
Yeah.
My coworker turned me on to a couple other movies that Billie Joe's been in, including a movie right before Ordinary World called Like Sunday Like Rain, which seems to actually have bad acting from him. So
Oh boy.
I am very curious to see how it compares to Ordinary World if I liked it so much and you did not.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I also have like my acting experience is different from like your film knowledge
Mm-hmm.
because I have stage acting experience,
I have a little bit of stage acting
which
experience.
which stage acting is very different from film acting.
Sure.
A lot more boisterous and out there. Like especially the characters I've played. I've played Shrek and Pumbaa, so
Ah, yes. Is that picture of Shrek going to be our episode art now?
if you want it to be, I mean, I wasn't like intentionally bringing it up so we'd use it, but
We'll see. If it's not, who knows? But if it is, surprise.
we'll Photoshop it on the baby or something.
It's time to face the music. Yeah. So the tagline for Ordinary World. It's time to face the music. Tagline for Angus. For everyone on the outside looking in, your moment has arrived.
Yeah.
Anyway, Angus is better.
Yeah. If you're gonna watch one of these, watch Angus.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think that's gonna do it for us pretty much. Unless you have anything else you really want to say.
I don't. Other than I hope Green Day puts out something good soon.
Yeah. Or at least there's another movie to bag on. That'd be fun too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, though, this has been Dissonant Waves. I've been Dominic. You can catch me online on Twitter at DACICHOCKI. I have written for Tilted Windmill Studios in the past. I have a couple articles up on Medium. Otherwise, hopefully you'll catch my writing again soon.
I have been Trix. You can catch me on Twitter at procrastronaut _. It's like procrastinating astronaut, and then there's an underscore. I also have a YouTube channel where I do shit on it. I've been away from that. I need to put some stuff on it. And we can catch us all at twitter.com/@dissonantwaves. And I'm going to get the website up later tonight. Dissonantwaves.space.
And if you're in this feed and you're watching these or like listening to these in order, it should hopefully predate the episode with Deer Hunter and who else did we even pick?
Dope Smoker.
Not Dope Smoker. Dope Throne and Genesis Owusu.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll see y'all later. Have a good morning, evening, night.